My Aunt Carol showed up with gifts I didn't ask for, then spent months guilting me about my ungratefulness. I didn't get her game until I uncovered her real motive. It started when I was around 12, right as I was figuring out who I was, navigating that awkward space between kid and teenager. Aunt Carol would roll into our house every few months, her arms loaded with brightly wrapped packages, her smile wide but sharp, like she was waiting for something. The gifts were always off. A neon green sweatshirt 2 sizes too big when I was into band tees and hoodies. A set of plastic toy soldiers when I hadn't played with toys in years. A book about knitting when I'd never shown interest in crafts. Each time, I'd force a smile, say thank you, and try to sound polite, but she'd zero in on my hesitation like a hawk. "You don't like it, do you?" she'd say, her voice dripping with disappointment. "I spent so much time picking this out, and you're just ungrateful." That word, ungrateful, stuck to me like gum on a shoe. She'd toss it out at every family gathering, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Kids these days don't appreciate anything," she'd sigh, glancing at me while sipping her iced tea. "I try so hard, but some people just don't know how to be thankful." My stomach would twist, and I'd shrink into my chair, feeling every pair of eyes on me. My parents would nudge me later, saying I needed to show more respect or be kinder to your aunt. I'd mumble apologies, but nothing I did was enough. If I tried to act excited about a gift, she'd call it fake. If I was quiet, I was rude. It was a trap I couldn't escape. By the time I was 14, I dreaded her visits. I get this knot in my chest when I saw her car pull into our driveway, her trunk probably stuffed with more mismatched junk. One Christmas, she handed me a box wrapped in snowman paper. Inside was a set of floral curtains. Curtains. For a teenage girl who didn't even have her own room. I shared a space with my younger sister, and our window had blinds. I stared at them, trying to figure out what to say. "They're pretty," I managed, but my voice cracked. Aunt Carol's eyes narrowed. "You don't sound like you mean it," she said. "I thought you'd love something to brighten your space." Guess I was wrong. That night, she told my mom I'd thrown her kindness back in her face. I got grounded for a week. I started to wonder if something was wrong with me. Maybe I was ungrateful. I'd lie awake at night, replaying every interaction, trying to pinpoint where I went wrong. I'd thank her more enthusiastically, write her thank you notes, even wear that hideous sweatshirt once to make her happy. But it only made things worse. She'd smirk, like she'd won something, and then find a new way to twist the knife. "Oh, you're finally wearing it? Took you long enough to appreciate my effort." I felt like I was losing my mind. Things shifted when I was 16. It was a humid summer evening, and we were having a barbecue in our backyard. Aunt Carol showed up with a gift bag, handing it to me in front of everyone. Inside was a baby pink diary with a glittery unicorn on the cover. Something a 6-year-old might love, not a high school junior. I forced a smile, thanked her, and set it aside. Later, I was grabbing a soda from the kitchen when I overheard her talking to my mom on the patio. Her voice was low, smug. "I got her that diary on purpose," she said. "She'll hate it, and it'll show how spoiled she is. Your sister needs to see how kids should be raised." My heart stopped. I pressed myself against the wall, barely breathing, as she went on. "You and your husband let her get away with everything. I'm just helping you see what's wrong." It hit me like a truck. All those gifts, all those years of guilt tripping. It wasn't about me being ungrateful. She was setting me up to fail, using me as a pawn to prove a point to my parents. She didn't care about me. She was trying to make my mom feel like a bad parent. I felt sick, angry, and oddly relieved all at once. I wasn't crazy. It wasn't my fault. But now I was stuck with a new problem. What do I do with this? Update 1, trying to outsmart her. I couldn't confront Aunt Carol directly, not yet. I was still a kid, living under my parents' roof, and I knew they'd take her side if I called her out. They'd probably say I was being dramatic or disrespectful. So I decided to play her game, but smarter. If she was trying to make me look ungrateful, I'd make it impossible for her to pin that on me. I started researching her gifts, figuring out ways to act like they were the best thing ever without giving her the satisfaction of seeing me squirm. The next time she came over, she brought me a set of cheap, knockoff earbuds that looked like they'd break in a week. I prepared for this. I'd read online about how to fake enthusiasm, even practiced in front of a mirror. When I opened the box, I gasped like I'd won the lottery. "Oh my gosh! These are perfect!" I gushed. "I've been wanting new earbuds forever, and these look so cool." I popped them in my ears right there, pretending to test them, even though they felt flimsy and smelled like plastic. Aunt Carol's face was priceless. She looked confused, almost annoyed. For once, she didn't have a snarky comeback. She just muttered, "Well, I'm glad you like them," and changed the subject. Felt like a small victory, but it wasn't enough. I kept up the act for months, going over the top with every gift. A tacky beaded bracelet? This is so my style. A cookbook for vegan recipes when I wasn't vegan? I've been wanting to try new dishes. I'd thank her profusely, even send her texts later about how much I was using her gifts. I could tell it was throwing her off. She started bringing weirder stuff like a snow globe from a gas station or a pair of fuzzy socks with cartoon cats. I think she was testing how far she could push it, but I didn't crack. But the guilt didn't go away. Even though I knew her game, I still felt trapped. Every time I played along, I was lying to myself, pretending to be okay with her manipulation. And my parents didn't notice a thing. They thought I was finally appreciating her. I started resenting them too, wondering why they couldn't see what she was doing. I'd overhear her dropping little digs about their parenting, like, "You're too soft on her," or "Kids need discipline, not coddling." It made my blood boil, but I kept quiet, biding my time. Then came the first big twist. It was my 17th birthday, and Aunt Carol showed up with a massive box, wrapped in shiny gold paper. Everyone was watching as I opened it, expecting another weird gift. Inside was a brand new laptop. Not a cheap one. A sleek, expensive model, the kind I'd only dreamed of. My jaw dropped, and for once I wasn't faking it. I looked at her, waiting for the catch, but she just smiled, all sweet and innocent. "I thought you deserved something special," she said. My parents were thrilled, gushing about how generous she was. I mumbled a stunned "thank you," my mind racing. This wasn't her usual move. What was she planning? Update 2: the laptop trap. That laptop changed everything, and not in a good way. At first, I was over the moon. I set it up in my room, downloaded my favorite apps, and used it for schoolwork and gaming. It was the first gift from Aunt Carol that I actually loved. But deep down, I knew it was too good to be true. She didn't do nice without strings attached. Sure enough, the strings showed up a few weeks later. Aunt Carol started calling me, something she'd never done before. She'd ask how the laptop was working, then slip in little comments. "You're probably on that thing all day, huh? Kids these days are so glued to screens." Or, "I hope you're using it for something productive, not just games." Felt like she was keeping tabs on me. Then she started showing up at our house more often, always with a new demand. "Since I got you that laptop, can you help me with my phone?" she'd say, handing me her ancient smartphone that took 10 minutes to load. Or, "I spent so much on you. The least you can do is run this errand for me." It was never ending. Pick up her dry cleaning, mow her lawn, fix her Wi-Fi. If I hesitated, she'd pull the guilt card. "After everything I've done for you, you can't spare an hour?" I realized the laptop wasn't a gift. It was a leash. She'd given me something I couldn't refuse, something my parents would never let me give back, just so she could control me. Worse, my parents were eating it up. They'd tell me to be grateful and help your aunt out. I felt like I was drowning. I couldn't say no without looking like the bad guy, but every time I said yes, I lost a piece of myself. Then came the second twist. One day, I was using the laptop when I noticed something weird. There was a folder on the desktop I hadn't created, labeled Family Photos. I clicked it, thinking it was a mistake, and found dozens of screenshots. Private messages from my social media, emails I'd written, even a draft of a school essay I hadn't shared with anyone. My heart pounded. Someone had been spying on me, and I had a sinking feeling it was Aunt Carol. I checked the laptop settings and found a remote access app one didn't recognize. I wasn't tech-savvy, but I knew enough to know this wasn't normal. I felt violated, betrayed, and furious. Had she been watching me this whole time? Was this why she gave me the laptop? I wanted to smash it, but I couldn't. Not without proof and not without my parents flipping out. I uninstalled the app and changed all my passwords, but I was paranoid. Every time I used the laptop, I wondered if she was still watching. I stopped using it for anything personal, sticking to my old phone instead. But the damage was done. I couldn't trust her, and I couldn't trust my own space. Final update: breaking free. I was 18 now, about to head to college, and I'd had enough. Aunt Carol's manipulation had taken over my life, and I was done playing her game. But I knew I couldn't just cut her off. My parents still saw her as the generous aunt who meant well. I needed a plan, something that would expose her without blowing up my family. I started documenting everything. Every gift, every guilt trip, every demand she made because of that laptop. I saved her texts, recorded her voicemails, and wrote down every snarky comment she made about my parents. I even took screenshots of the weird folder on the laptop before I deleted it. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it all, but it felt good to have proof. Then came the third twist, and this one I didn't see coming. It was Thanksgiving, and Aunt Carol was at our house, as usual, holding court at the dinner table. She'd brought me another gift, a gaudy ceramic angel figurine that looked like it came from a thrift store. I thanked her, same as always, but this time, I noticed my mom looked off. She was quieter than usual, picking at her food. After dinner, I found her in the kitchen, staring out the window. I asked if she was okay, and she hesitated before saying, "Your aunt's been talking to me a lot lately. About you. About how we've failed as parents." It all spilled out. Aunt Carol had been feeding my mom lies for years, saying I was disrespectful, entitled, and out of control. She'd used every ungrateful moment to convince my mom she wasn't doing enough. My mom was heartbroken, blaming herself for my behavior. I felt a mix of rage and relief. This was my chance. I told her everything. The diary, the curtains, the laptop, the spying app. I showed her my notes, the texts, the screenshots. First, she didn't believe me. She wouldn't do that, she kept saying. But the evidence was overwhelming. The next day, my mom called Aunt Carol over. I stayed in my room, but I could hear their voices. Mom's steady, Carol's defensive. I don't know what was said, but when Carol left, she didn't take her usual smugness with her. My mom came to my room afterward, apologizing through tears. She'd had no idea how far Carol was going, how she'd been using me to tear her down. We talked for hours, and for the first time I felt like she really understood me. I didn't see Aunt Carol much after that. She stopped coming to family events, and when she did, she kept her distance. I gave the laptop to a local charity before I left for college. It felt like shedding a skin I'd outgrown. My relationship with my parents isn't perfect, but it's better. They're learning to trust me, and I'm learning to speak up. Looking back, I realize Aunt Carol's game wasn't just about me or my parents. It was about her. She needed to feel superior, to control something, to prove she was better than us. I don't hate her, but I don't forgive her either. I'm just glad I'm out of her trap, living my life on my own terms.